special meeting to discuss the fire department budget, November 17th at 3 p.m.
On the road, Mr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Haddad is absent, will be joining us a little bit later. Mr. Genoa.
Here.
Well, what I'll do is I'll start my speech that you've heard a couple times. The message was clear that township government and governments in general have to downsize. And so with that in mind, we worked with the fire department and we said we need a 2012 budget that's less than your 2011 budget. Now, whoa. But we went through every line item very closely and we worked with them, and we can see that our 2012 budget is less than the 2011 budget. Just by a few dollars, but it is less. And I want to compliment the fire department for working with us and really looking at each line item and maybe we can save $1 here, $1 there, and we did it. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jim to go over the revenue and various expenses, and then our chiefs are here to speak up whenever they feel they need to. All right, Jim.
Thank you. You have in front of you the budget that we're presenting. The estimated budget. Now, as I pointed out before, the beginning cash is always a moving target because I don't know how the year is going to end. It's an estimate. It could be, hopefully it could be a little bit more, but that's the number that I've put in there. Coming down to here, the EMS contract, hopefully we're going to get a little bit more than that, but that's what we've been receiving for the last 2-3 years. And I don't know, Jeff, if you've heard anything more about whether that's going to get increased or not.
We had a meeting, the operating chiefs that have a life squad stationed at their engine houses had a meeting, and we also had a meeting with Dennis Cole to look at the contract that we have coming up in December. We requested a 5% increase for next year, 2% for the 2 following years. We felt that with the increase of them billing, that this was well within the budget. We are meeting again, the operating chiefs again on Monday morning at 8 o'clock to formulate a specific plan that we can take to them as far as where we see this money coming from. The money is tied to the 0.25% sales tax, the money that we get, and that is a fixed number. It cannot exceed 4%. Right now they're projecting for next year's, what their projection was possibly even a 7% increase in the sales tax. So we'd be getting some of that money, but we want other monies to be taken from the transport money, and we're going to sit with them and have a specific number with that. We might have to extend the contract, Mr. General, for a couple months while we work those numbers out, but that will be determined on December. The first Wednesday of December is when we have our EMS board meeting. But that's our proposal to them. And he didn't faint, so he might be in the right ballpark.
We continue on. The fees are fairly nominal. The rollback, homestead, the fire department estimate for taxes this year we're pretty close to what it was in 2011. The next line is the commercial activity tax, and as I told you before, that's been cut severely. This number that you see there, that $83,929, is a published number, and I have that in a spreadsheet, so hopefully we'll get that. They eliminated the utility deregulation, interest income. I've put a low number in there. Hopefully we can exceed that, but I hate to put extra numbers in if something happens. Other miscellaneous, it's about the same as the previous year, and then I've also placed in there the sale of Station 2, is it? 2.
Yes, sir.
The fire department does own that building. So, continuing on down to the expenditures, the salaries, there's a 0% increase. I have built in the increase in terms of health insurance. The other items, we've lowered the overtime. They're doing really well with that this year. So we were able to cut back on that. The rest of those items are pretty much formulas built into based on your payroll. So as the payroll changes, those other items, some of those other items will change, like your retirement, Social Security, Medicare, et cetera. Going down, any questions as far as labor is concerned?
I was gonna go get my, I don't know if I took my police report with us, but the cat tax on the police, I thought, or the cat was only like, I know it's like, here it's 300,000 to 400,000 per year over the last few years, and the police cat is a lot less. Why is that?
I don't think it was a lot less, it was a little bit less.
You keep going.
It was a little less, but I don't think it was a lot less.
Okay, well, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
When we're looking at estimated 2011, is that with updated numbers through like October?
That's with it's been published. As far as the cat tax is concerned,
All of them? Like anything in that estimated 2011 column?
Well, actually-
Are they fairly up to date, or they're looking
Yeah,
at
but
beginning of the year estimates?
no, their real estate taxes are what we've actually collected.
Okay.
The contract, in fact, the EMS contract, we got checked. I see it was deposited today,
Yeah.
the fourth quarter.
Last check.
So we have all four of those. Fees are what I anticipate so far. The rollback is exactly what we're going to get. The commercial activity tax is what's been published as to what we're going to get. I haven't received the last amount of money yet, but it's been published, and that's what we're going to get. So the utility deregulation is what we've received up to this date, and that's not, we're not going to get any more. So,
But on the expense side, and not the revenue side, they're still up to date as well?
as close as I can,
Okay.
estimate them out. What I do is, I look at what we were at a certain point and try to calculate out what the remaining portion of the year is, and it's a guess, I'll guarantee you that, but.
But we're getting close to the end of the
Yeah,
year, so we should be within the...
Yeah, the budget amount for 2011 should be what we proposed at the beginning of the year, and then the estimated is what we feel is going to end the year.
Okay.
Going down through the other expenditures, not in the salary area, but we've been able to lower a couple, we've had to raise some. Legal counsel is based on that same formula that you saw in the other budgets. The hiring cost, 21,000 we've put in there, that's what we have in the 2011 budget. Auditors and treasurers' fees, not much I can do about it, other than yell a lot, okay? And I do. Land reutilization is the same thing. We have no control over that. Training, consistent with last year. If we go down through here, equipment repairs and maintenance, we've increased a little bit. Apparatus repairs, we've actually lowered that a little bit. Vehicle maintenance and parts is the same. Travel, we've lowered. Building and grounds, I've raised that a little bit because of some items that the chief has expressed that they need done, and then I added 3 items just in the last few days that he had in his permanent improvement fund that didn't belong in there, and they were repairs to the building and other items that didn't fall into our guidelines as far as permanent improvement is concerned. So I added them to the building and grounds repairs line item. Postage, electric is more, and we've had some pretty high electric bills this year, so I don't know whether it's because we've had multiple stations operating at the same time or what.
Well, you've got bigger, number 3s is bigger, number 3s is almost twice as big as the old number 3s, even though we did put some of the energy saving and conserving stuff in, but we got everything turned way down at number 2 station, but the old number 2s.
Hey, Jim, can I shift gears on you here for a second, too? Is there a way that we can look at, not today, but next time, next couple of days, if you can get for me, I'm curious what the actual and the estimated for 2009, and then the actual you have for 2010, what was the budget for 2010? And I'm just looking for trends to see how close we are with those, because my concern is the 2015. I want to make sure I'm just seeing if we got trends.
Actually, it's not, it probably isn't a whole lot to look, because it's in the same spreadsheet, it's just hidden.
I'm looking for you.
Yeah, yeah. I have all those numbers in the same spreadsheet, I just didn't,
Okay, no problem,
Yeah.
whenever you get a chance.
Yeah.
Thanks.
water and sewer we've raised, because its cost has been up.
Can I say something about that?
Sure.
On the water and sewer, there's an increase in the water bill for us because we put a sprinkler system in the buildings. And they charge us a surcharge for that because they don't meter that water that's in the sprinkler system itself, so they charge you something, a little bit every month. So if it were to go off, there's no way for them to tell how much water you use, so that's the surcharge, unfortunately, for buildings that put it in. Sort of like a penalty, which
To be the opposite.
should be the opposite, you're right.
Another question with that, I know Kevin brought it up one time for the yard down here, but like Coleman Corporation, you can get a well drilled for, could you offset by drilling, the Coleman's well's 120 feet there, next to you there on yard 2.
As far as the water for floors,
Yeah, or even the other sites, it's all sand, I mean, we wouldn't have to drill a well very high, could we augment that for water?
Maybe for the sprinkler system, but
Yeah, that's what I mean, for the sprinkler.
this is for this, like the
Oh,
sprinkler.
the inside sprinkler, I'm sorry. No, the inside sprinkler system.
Okay, sorry.
Natural gas heating, about the same. Phone costs have went up.
Did we see any dip with the geothermal, just out of curiosity?
With the geothermal at 3s, we're just going past our second heating season, we should be able to compare that with the old 3s, although we did double the space from old 3s to new 3s. We haven't been through the full heating cycle at number 2s yet, but we should be able to start trending that maybe in the next year, to see if we did save anything.
And the cost of the utilities that have been going up, hopefully we get a chance to level out, and then we can get a more accurate comparison.
Yeah, I was just more out of curiosity.
Sure.
I like to put it in my house, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
If it works.
If it
I mean,
works.
it's plain.
Going down through the other, there's not a whole lot of change in the remaining items. Building and maintenance and supplies and materials, we did increase, and you have some reasons behind for that.
Yeah, actually, we have a boiler at number 1s that, needs some repairs. And then the building maintenance, we also have some concrete maintenance that we're going to be doing at number 4s that I think you increased it for that also.
No, that's in the permanent improvement fund, that's not in this one, so. Okay. Just some, as you go down through there, we've raised some, we've lowered some. Nothing that's really significant, other than your communication equipment, and you had planned to buy some more radios?
Yes, some portables and some radios, and then we have to, Lucas County, this will be the last year for the preventive maintenance plan through Lucas County Communication Center. So we have to buy our own preventive maintenance for both the mobiles and the portables.
We've lowered the purchase of hose from 20, which we've utilized most of that this year. We'll lower that for next year. We did raise the scuba equipment, double that for next year, and your reasoning there was?
The repairs, we've trended the repairs over the last 5 years with the SCBA equipment, and most of it's electronics, and the repairs and the bench testing is awful high on that. We also want to start buying some SCBA bottles. Our bottles are only good for 15 years, and rather than buy 90 bottles at the end of that 15 years and have a large bill for that, we're trying to do just X amount of bottles every year, so when that comes, it's not a big expense for the department or the township.
Okay, I don't see a whole lot of change in the rest of the accounts. We did increase the local match for federal grants because you have a pending grant out there.
Yes, sir.
That's going to require that particular match. So
We have a $110,000 grant for hose. We want to replace all of our attack lines. We've replaced all of our large diameter hose. To lay into a fire, we've replaced all those. We want to replace our attack lines. So rather than buy that, we went for a grant, and hopefully we'll get that this year. Supply.
Any questions for the operating expenses on payroll? Next page is the transfers out, a debt service, capital equipment improvement, the cost allocation, vehicle maintenance, which is a third of the mechanics and dispatch. This is the amount that been agreed upon between the police and the fire for reimbursing the police department for dispatch services. Well, as you can see, if we continue with these projections with 0% increases, it looks like it'll carry us through 2014.
When was the last time it was as low in 2014, as far as the balance? What year?
When was it as low?
Remember, yeah, like, when we been that low, was it 2005 or 6?
No, I think it was before the levy. It was like 2007 or something like that.
2007.
Because we borrowed from the general fund before the levy.
Yeah.
It was lower.
Was that 7?
I think there was 7, yeah, end of 7.
I wasn't here, but,
Don't worry, we're not blaming you.
neither were you, so.
I know.
I was here.
Susan, you were here, it's all your fault. Any questions on what we've presented to you so far? I have two smaller sheets, and this is the capital improvement and permanent improvement funds. The one, the 2012, they're proposing that they purchase 3 new vehicles in 2012 for a total of $95,000, and this comes out of their capital equipment fund, which they have, to the best, as it stands right now, the fire department has about a $281,000 fund balance going into 2012. And we're proposing that we put 150 in there, and we would put us up to 431,000. Again, this could change it slightly, but that's where we were as of about 2 weeks ago. And the other one is the permanent improvement fund. There's several items there that they're proposing. The $1,600,000, of course, it can come out of the bond issue, and the above-ground storage tank, Station 4, we feel like can come out of the bond issue. Those are monies. The other items cannot, we don't feel like can be used from the bond issue. It has to come out of their transfer in, and they do have enough money in that particular fund that wasn't from the bond issue to cover those particular items. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of the money left from the bond issue in that particular fund, so I'm budgeting $1.6 million, and that's pretty consistent with the other buildings that we've built. It costs us between 1.4 and 1.5 million. So now that doesn't include the land. The general fund buys the land, and that's in the general fund budget also.
How much did we budget?
$200,000.
Is that taking into consideration the sale or of the new one or the old one, or the 200 grand?
We have no money in the budget at this point for the sale of 1.
No.
If that happens, that would be different. We have the money for the sale of 2.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
at this point, we don't have in the budget, so that could offset it, or put additional dollars. One of the things, as Jim was talking about, bond fund, is I'm very weary and careful working with the fire department on spending that money on things that, what I consider weren't really the issue when the bond was issued. It kind of hurts the budget a little bit, but I have to make sure there's enough money there for the new fire station. I don't want to start nitpicking that away, and all of a sudden, the fire station comes in a little bit more an estimate than we thought, and the money's gone. So that's why Jim and the chief have been working on some of the things that we feel is okay for the bond issue, and other things we have to take out of their permanent improvement. So that's why there's kind of a disparity between what we're paying out of the bond issue and what we're paying out of permanent improvement.
I do keep track of those items separately from each one of them. Because these particular funds were established in 2006. And I've been able to track the movement on that stuff from that particular point forward. So monies that were transferred in there from the operating budgets are, in there, and then also the bond issue that or the levy that was passed to help pay for the bond issue, is what I should say. Do you have any questions? Well, as you can see from this particular budget at the top of this, it says the original projection, no transport cost. I have also done a budget that you don't have in front of you yet, but
This is for informational purposes
only.
Yes.
No, she doesn't have one.
Chief, if I were to ask you what things kind of worry you about this budget, is there anything that stands out to you? Is there any concern that, obviously, banking on a 0% raises for the next 2 to 3 years, that's got to be something to consider.
Sure.
But is there anything else that, if it doesn't go a certain way, that we could end up on the other side of this thing?
I think we went over this, actually, we started the process about 2.5 months ago, going over the budgets from the last couple of years to see where we could, if we could trend anything, what we spent the money on, what we're going to need to spend money on in the next couple of years, and tried to do it just like buying gear. Instead of buying 56 sets of gear in another 3 years, we try increasing those amounts each year and buying it as we go on, rather than one big dollar amount. So I feel pretty comfortable with this. The only thing that I'm a little bit leery about is the building maintenance amount because of number one's fire station. We don't know what's going to happen there as far as when we're going to replace it, so I don't know how much money. We did increase it to $10,000. I think that's something that needed to be done. We do have some roof issues, some boiler issues, but we're Band-Aiding them to get us through, and hopefully we can make a decision on that and start through, but that's about the only thing that...
I do want to meet with you and John soon.
Sure.
Start that process. I know we've been looking and had our pencils out for a long time, but like everybody said, it's time to start moving aggressively.
Sure.
And be ready as soon as the weather breaks in the spring to break ground somewhere.
I spoke to CNR, and they said right now that the construction costs are going up slightly.
Yeah.
Not a lot right now, but the trend is starting to move upward a little bit. And as the economy gets better and people go back to work, then the construction costs are probably going to go up. So it's probably a good thing that we start talking about it in earnest.
A year old, year and a half old.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
And I don't think anybody's expecting anything to move too quickly.
No.
I mean, there's just so many variables out
Sure.
there, but it's a priority for our community to get it done. So I do want to meet and kind of revisit some of those sites and things and get a plan going here that hopefully the community can embrace.
Sure.
Okay, the sheet that John just handed out to you is the with transport cost, and let me tell you the major differences in this particular budget versus the one that we just went over. This particular budget includes an additional 4 full-time firefighter paramedics, and the part-time employees' time has been doubled versus the other budget. In addition to that, we've increased the fuel costs a little bit for a transport unit. And we also put into this particular budget what they call an operating lease for a transport unit. It's at the bottom of page 2, and it's at $35,000. That's the major differences. Now, I didn't go through and calculate out things like clothing and stuff like that. We would probably have to increase it a little bit.
The good news though, on the revenue side, Jim was put in there,
Yeah, put $100,000 for 2012 and $400,000 for years thereafter.
You've only increased the salary for firefighters, so by $100,000 to do it?
No, it's from 3,555 to 3.396, so you're about 150,000.
3416 to 3555.
Now, yeah, plus the fact that these firefighters in 2012, I only have them started as April 1st. I don't have a full year in there.
So if you look at the access operations, so let's say this, in 2013, it would show us losing, according to the budget, 200 and some odd thousand, and then another 200,000 in 2014, and then 150,000 and 250 in 2000. I'm looking at the excess.
Right.
Page two?
that's correct.
Okay, so we're gonna lose, it looks, according to the budget, we're gonna lose if we go with EMS.
Well, the first year you're gonna...
This is on 3 years, I know, I'm just,
Yeah,
I mean, the break-even point isn't gonna be out till roughly 2018.
Once again, you're correct in your assumption. We were trying, on the revenue side, the 400,000, and what we're trying, we're probably, it's a realistic number, but we're being on the conservative side there. And once again, I'll let, if you have questions, I'll let the chief talk. One of the things we're trying to do is the dollars we always look at, but the chief also has some concerns
And
about
the safety things.
the safety, the efficiency, so even though there's not dollar value
Right.
attached to that,
Right,
the township is providing what I'll call better fire service
I understand.
in that. And so, the difference in the two, you're correct, is $200,000 that would be short in 14 as opposed to the other one. Whether we can make some budget cuts, to make up for that, or we get more revenue, or whatever, but once again, this was just for informational purposes, so you can see
Yeah, no, this is great, I appreciate it.
what a transport unit over the long run, cost-wise, and then the chief has his efficiencies.
Continuity of care, getting engine companies back in service quicker. We had, just this previous month, we had 18 times when the units were over 20 minutes at the scene waiting for a transport unit. We've called Toledo and Springfield to give us transport units. Our crews have to stay on scene with that patient. We can't abandon the patient. So that's keeping a suppression company out of service for another run.
Okay, great.
And the $400,000 is what our best estimate was the last time it was in service for the 12-month period of time.
Okay.
Where is the income from that shown here? Is that?
It's on the front page, under transport fees.
Okay. How much do we expect out of, Tuesday night you mentioned charging a fee for a lot of the services that we do? Is that like $1,000 or $50,000?
I don't know that it's gonna be a windfall. We're still trying to get those numbers, like the girls that were looking up the numbers for burn permits, temp permits and all those. We're running those numbers to get, and the way I see that is that it would help support the Fire Prevention Bureau for some of the things that we do, that we're taking out of our general fund right now, or our operating fund, that we do for the schools, and we do the free smoke detector giveaways and all those different things. We don't have to take it out of our operating funds. We would basically let them be self-sustaining.
Those fees are established in the Ohio Revised Code, the fire code, and they're pretty much industry standard fees across the board. They're not, it's not a get-rich thing. They're designed to basically replenish what you use when you go out and do these things, for the most part.
Fee for a service. I mean,
Just offset the cost.
Service and,
Sure.
and I think the community should be able to understand that. Okay, I was just more curious.
Yeah.
So we're probably somewhere in the $10,000
Probably.
or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Neil, you got any questions?
No, I don't. Great job, guys.
Mr.
Appreciate all
Haddad
your
is gonna,
He said he was just going to be a few minutes, so.
If I may just say one thing, if I could, I would like to thank my staff because we've worked on this for a couple months and it gave us some headaches trying to do this and trying to cut and make sure that we're not padding anything. We're trying to come up with a realistic number that we could live by and also, make sure that we don't go over the budget. And they've done a wonderful job and the guys have really tried to conserve too in the engine houses. So it's really a group effort for everybody and I appreciate all their help.
One thing I noticed, Chief, too, is when at first I met you in Sylvania, when we had an off-campus meeting, was, John, I don't mean to not include you in this either, because I am. Your overtime charges in 2010 to what they are in 2011 and 2012, I commend you by keeping a, we all know what we're dealing with here.
Sure.
You guys, I think you've done a great job with that.
Thank you. That's been an effort from the whole department. I think the guys are really attuned to that now, and they really understand what it takes to run, and we're controlling the sick leave, and we're not getting a lot of overtime. They have actually volunteered several times to go out for community events instead of requesting the overtime pay, so that's worked out well. It's a group effort.
I'm John. Do you have any questions?
I'm good, yeah. I think, again, the more we break things out, the better it is to understand, the better it is to budget and everything else. I mean, I just think when you're looking at big lump sums of big, broad headings to it, it's very difficult to dig into it
Sure.
to see where cuts can be made and where you don't want to make a cut.
Right.
And so I know Mr. Beck and Mr. Zeitler, with their accounting backgrounds, have probably pushed and prodded, and then it takes you guys to dig into it. So
I think it's an educational perspective on their point as well, because there are a lot of things that we have to do, bench tests, annual tests on hose, ladders, pump tests, that they're not familiar with, they're fee-based, that we have to do every year. And with the chief, being here for a while and experiencing a lot of the stuff that had gone on in the past, we were able to come up with a plan on the apparatus replacement schedule, vehicle replacement schedule, push it out a little bit, and with the the PPE gear that we have to replace over a certain amount of time, and the SCBA to develop a schedule that we can do a little bit each year so we can keep our budget relatively consistent.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Big swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mr. Beck and Mr. Zeitler kept us honest too along the way.
Yeah, that's, I actually have the easy part, I said, cut the budget. But I will say that, working with the fire department and Jim and everybody and the staff, is that I think we can only do this so often, make a budget smaller than the year before. I mean, at some point, as he says, there are fixed costs that they have to cover, but I think, at least in 2012, we're presenting a budget that the fire department can accomplish its mission without, a detriment to the service to the citizens. Now, we can do that only so many times, but I think in 12 weeks, we're able to do it. But, as time goes on, it's going to get harder and harder to make these cuts. But I think for 12, the township is in, in good shape. The services, and I'll say for all the departments that were in here, for all the departments that were in here presenting their budget, I think in 2012, they'll be a more efficient township organization, but still be able to provide the services with less money. They all work well with that.
I mean, how much fun do you think it is for me to sit here and have you guys present no raises to people? I mean, that's hard, even, my day job. And for you guys to do this, I mean, it's hard. And I hope we can figure, hope things start turning a little bit, start with our real estate taxes to begin with, and land transfers and sales, and getting businesses back out here doing business. That there'll be a day we can all say, hey, here's some raise. Right now we appreciate what you guys are doing. This isn't fun for us to listen to you guys. Nobody get raised either. It's a hard pill to swallow too. So.
All right. Yeah, I think we're done. So.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to close this meeting at 3:36.
Second.
On the roll, Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Haddad was not able to join us. Mr. Genowine.
Yes.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
And ladies, sorry.